From the European Parliament in Brussels, this is Raw Politics. Thank you for joining us tonight, and this is what we have on the program. Tensions rising, an alleged attack on 2 tankers in the Gulf of Oman, and what it means for Iran. Boots on the ground, no Fort Trump, but America is pledging to send 1,000 troops to Poland. Operation Rebrand, Renew and ID. The Liberals and far-right unveil new names for a new parliament. Prime Minister Johnson, what MEPs really think of the frontrunner in the race to replace Theresa May. And photobombed, our Darren McCaffrey versus a persistent protester in tonight's Raw Moment. Okay, we have our panelists for this evening. Of course, we start with Darren McCaffrey, our political editor at Euronews.
Fresh back from
Darren.
London. And actually, I'm going to start with the Conservative leadership race. We heard the results of the first round of voting today. Boris, the blonde bombshell, the former foppish former Foreign Secretary, is way out in the lead. You'd have to say that he is by far the firm favourite now to be not just next Conservative leader, but Prime Minister too.
And we will be talking about that. Okay, also joining us, Andrej Mamikins. He's a Latvian MEP from the Socialists and Democrats group. What about you, Andrej? What are you watching closely tonight?
Situation in the Baltic region and militarization possibly in Poland, of course.
All right, okay. And also with us, Nina Gill. She's a British MEP, also from the Socialists and Democrats group. What about you, Nina?
Well, looking at the situation in Iran and the Middle East, it's very, very concerning what it means for world peace.
A lot of movement, actually, militarily. All right, that's exactly where we are beginning tonight with developing news in the Gulf of Oman, where 2 oil tankers were reportedly hit in a suspected attack. Now, these pictures, now they're on your screen from Iranian broadcasters, show one of the oil tankers on fire in the Sea of Oman. The cause of the incident is still unknown, but the charterer of one of the vessels said that it was, quote, suspected of being hit by a torpedo, end quote. Now, the U.S. Navy rushed to assist. All 44 crew members from both ships were evacuated and taken to the Iranian port of Jask. Now, Norwegian ship Front Altair and Japan's Kokuka Courageous were traveling through the Strait of Hormuz, the latter just 14 nautical miles from the Iranian coast. As according to BSM Ship Management, it is one of the world's most strategically important waterways, the Strait of Hormuz, with a fifth of the world's oil exports squeezing through the strait each day. Okay, so let's talk about the significance of this. Oil prices were already jumping today, reacting to the news. But first of all, how significant is this incident? You were watching it closely. How significant is this amid the tension already in the region?
I would say, given the tensions, it's hugely significant because they have been rising in the Gulf and in that part of the world. And given the rhetoric between the US and Iran, we all have to be worried. We have to play it down and not overreact. I think it's important that we stabilise the situation because any party that exit on as such could mean, you know, World War III, basically.
I mean, we will go deeper into the previous exchange between the 2 countries. But first, a quick word from you, Andrej, on how dangerous do you think this is now?
It's very dangerous, and I'm afraid that the United States
Should we be playing it down, or you think?
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with Nina.
Down.
Yeah,
okay.
and the United States of America try to find more reasons to start, maybe, possibly, a military campaign.
Okay. And
I mean, I think there's clearly a concerted campaign. You know, this is not just a singular incident. We had an incident a few weeks ago. The UAE at the time, whose votes were attacked, decided not to assign blame to a particular country. Problem is, we don't know who's behind these attacks. Iran says it is definitely not them. But the reason that we should be concerned is clearly someone is trying to raise and escalate the tensions in that region amidst this political row.
Exactly.
And I think that is the worrying
Okay,
aspect.
let's just put...
And coincided with the, you know, Prime Minister Abe being in Iran for talks as
Okay, well, let's put all this into context, because our social media team in the Cube have been monitoring the situation. And Alex, can you lay out the land for us, please?
Well, yeah, taking a look at the tensions here, taking place off the coast, I suppose you could say, Tessa, of that land, if we're talking in those terms. Look at this. These pictures, these are the pictures from today. But this news story on our Euronews website from almost exactly a month ago. Let's not forget, as Darren was saying there, as the panel were discussing, this is an incredibly tense time in an incredibly intense region through which, a waterway through which, a fifth, roughly 30% of the world's crude oil is squeezed. This really could be a very dangerous flashpoint. So let's just break down what has gone on in the past for you. Well, we are talking here, this is the Gulf of Oman, here, the Strait of Hormuz. This yellow boat represents the 4 vessels which suffered suspected attacks on the 12th of May. That is roughly a month ago to the day. Then today, these 2 vessels, the cause unknown again though, people, suspecting that there is some sort of element behind the scenes here, people calling it a suspected attack, the details not yet clear. Why does it matter? We'll just look at the players in this region. United Arab Emirates here, Oman, Iran, this region, highly significant. Tensions very high. And let's not forget that this is all taking place against a backdrop of a war of words between the US President Donald Trump, his leading officials. Worth saying that at this stage, I'm talking to you, not many of them have tweeted the president yet, holding off on that one. And of course, the Iranian President Rouhani. Now, this is the US's attempt, in their words, to squeeze the Iranian regime. There really are fears that they could be pushing things too far. And look at the day this all happened on. We're talking about Thursday. This is the day summed up well by Mohammed Ali Harisi here. He's a journalist for the AFP. He's saying here, the incident in the Gulf of Oman involving oil tankers on a very busy Thursday reminds us it's one day after an attack at a Saudi airport. This is, of course, the war in Yemen. A lot of proxy fighting going on there, a hugely complicated situation there, but also just ahead of airstrikes in the Yemeni capital as well. Not only are we talking an incident going back a month, not only are we talking about an incident yesterday, we're talking about a much greater escalation, if you like, of tensions between Iran and particularly the United States. And let's just bring you what the Iranians have tweeted about it. Well, Mr. Zarif, the foreign minister, says, it is suspicious. Iran, that's the word, suspicious. They're saying it's not us. It is suspicious what is going on here. As yet, nothing from the US officials, but the US Navy keen to tweet a picture of the kind of vessels that they are deploying into the region to, in their words, provide assistance. Why does it matter? Well, as your panel, as you guys are talking about there, I think the whole world is seeing this is an incredibly significant piece of slither of waterway, if you like. And one bad step really could push us in the wrong direction.
All right, thanks for that, Alex and our team in the Cube. We were talking about the war of words between the two sides, but we know that Trump's aversion to military entanglements abroad, it's well known. But is Iran a different case?
I don't think Iran is a different case in a sense. We've got to be very mindful of how long it has taken the EU initiative to bring Iran to the table to have the talks. So it's important not to treat it as a different case in terms of for Trump. You know, I mean, he's got to be mindful that this is one of the most volatile regions we have. And it's taken a long time for the West to establish that dialogue. And we can't just play the same game he's been able to play elsewhere with China and so on. So in one way, I'm coming back to say maybe it is a different case.
I think the thing about Donald Trump is, I mean, he has made it repeatedly clear that you're right, he doesn't want to get involved in foreign wars. It's one of the reasons he got elected president of the United States, and I think he still holds to that. But of course, there are circumstances, aren't there? And things can very quickly change. Now, he's clearly trying to apply pressure to Iran to try and get it to change what he calls as the worst deal the US has ever signed in its history, ever, as he put it. But the problem is how Iran reacts. And I think what we're seeing potentially with these escalations and these attacks is that we could go back to what Iran have always threatened with their trump card, which is blocking the Strait of Hormuz, which is, as Alex was explaining, you know, carries a fifth of the world's oil, I think 17 or 19 million barrels a day. In those circumstances, you can then see the United States would have to respond to that, and then you start getting into this game where tensions start going up
and you don't know where it's going to lead.
And in those circumstances, given how sensitive that region is, you don't know where it stops.
So yeah, as Aaron was saying, you know, first of all, Iran is getting pushed into a corner. It's been asking the EU for help to circumvent the US sanctions economically to help its economy, but clearly that's not doing, it's not helping them much. What incentive does Iran have to keep not proliferate or to keep not engaging in the nuclear activities that they used to be engaged in? What incentive do they have to keep their word?
I think the Iranian nuclear deal was one of the most victories of the European diplomacy. And we, the Europeans, the European Union, we should try to keep Iran on the table and try to use all our diplomatic channel in dialogue with the United States of America, with Mr. Trump, because Trump has absolutely another purposes than now we have the European Union in the Gulf region, in the case of Iran in particular.
But But what is the offer to Iran? Like, what does Iran have to get out of this if the other side, let's say, would not want to play ball? Why would they? Why would they stay on the table?
Iran is pretty open country and at least tries to demonstrate that there is no military activities in this, in producing of uranium and so on and so far. But we being a mediator, possibly the European Union between the United States and Iran, we didn't use all the necessary channels to inform, to little bit push to Trump's administration.
So quick word from you, Nina. Is there, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the important thing is that in terms of JCPOA, that it wasn't Iran who broke it. It was the US. And most of Europe is with Iran on this, right? I mean, we're all being bullied by US in terms of trade sanctions, you know, in terms of our industry to kind of play the US game. But the important thing is that Europe has still been trying to say, well, it wasn't Iran who.
The question is, though, if the EU has.
But also, just to defend the United States slightly here, is that they have repeatedly said we want to have negotiations with Iran, we want to talk to Iran, and so far is Iran saying no, we don't want to talk to you.
Okay, all right. Let's leave it at that for now. Let's turn to Poland, another country where there's a lot of geopolitical tensions, if you will say, or happenings there, which will receive 1,000 extra troops from the United States. Now, that announcement comes as Donald Trump welcomed the Polish President Andrzej Duda to the White House, and the two leaders signed a new defense agreement and marked it with a rare flyover of an F-35 fighter jet. And Trump says that Poland will pay for the cost of the additional deployment, with the Polish leaders offering to name the temporary base Fort Trump. Well, the troops could be moved from Germany, a country Trump has criticized for not meeting its NATO spending targets. The two leaders stressed the need for protection against Russia.
Poland has really built up a great country. You know, they get hurt, unfortunately, too often, right? Too often. They're in the middle of everything, and when bad things happen, it seems that Poland is always the first one that's in there.
Za to, że z całą pewnością należy pan właśnie do tych prezydentów Stanów Zjednoczonych, którzy tą prawidłowość rozumieją doskonale, że zwrócenie przez Stany Zjednoczone oczu i uwagi na Europę i jej sprawy, na kwestie bezpieczeństwa państw europejskich ma kluczowe znaczenie dla pokoju na świecie, ma kluczowe znaczenie dla spokojnego rozwoju demokratycznych państw i demokratycznych społeczeństw.
Well, for more analysis on this, I'm joined by Paweł Markiewicz from Warsaw, who is an analyst at the Polish Institute of International Affairs. Thanks for joining us on the program. So what is at the heart of Poland's enthusiasm, it seems, to cozy up to the United States?
Well, thank you for having me. I think what's at the heart of the matter is increasing security and deterrence in East Central Europe and the NATO eastern flank. This has been one of the main issues since Russia's aggression on Ukraine, since Russia's aggression on Georgia, as well as Russia using its non-force methods such as cyber attacks on the Baltic countries, that has shown the necessity to strengthen the eastern flank of NATO.
Okay, well, does it not have faith in its European allies if Russia, if it's, you know, trying to protect itself against what they see as Russian aggression? Why not turn to your European partners? Why buy jets from the United States? Why not from the French? So why is that it has to go to the U.S.?
Well, I think one of the factors is that Poland wants to strengthen as well its transatlantic ties, and through buying U.S. arms or weapons, is trying to do so. But it's also showing, whether it's buying from the U.S. or from other European countries, that it's very, very serious about its protection, about protecting East Central Europe. That it's not just looking for NATO to do its job, but it's also contributing to NATO and actually ready to pay into the fund, ready to purchase arms, ready to invest.
All right, is there an internal squabbling going on here that you see? Because we saw that this is taking away from Germany, and then these troops will be going into Poland. So the relationship with Poland is warming, whereas it's the opposite for Germany. Is there an internal squabble in terms of its relationship with Europe that's happening here?
That'll yet to be seen once all the real terms start to take effect of the joint declaration. I think what needs to be highlighted here is the fact that Poland, as I mentioned, is someone that's been paying into the fund, the NATO fund, for quite some time. Since 2015, it's been reaching the 2% goal, and quite simply speaking, Poland wants to gain the membership that it's paying for, and that's one of the issues at the heart of this matter, is taking advantage of building a strong relationship with the United States in order to strengthen the eastern flank and the Central European and Baltic states.
And also basically getting its money's worth. That's your point there. All right, thank you very much for joining us on the program on that for some insight. Okay, let's get right to it. So why? Why do you think, you were watching this closely, why is Poland cozying up? Yes, we see the Russian threat as they see it, but why to the United States?
Because paradoxically, we, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Poland, and other 10 countries joined NATO in 2004, we still feel ourselves unsafe. Why? We're spending more and more for security and defense, but we're still unsafe. We're still asking Mr. Trump, and in particular Polish government, for more and more troops, 1,000 troops, we have heard. Another thing, this is not will of the Polish people. This is a point and a crucial point for Polish conservative government. For example, if we socialists could have...
What's the will of the Polish people in this sense?
I think militarization of the region and additional troops of the ordinary people, because it will be provoking Russia, absolutely. It is a story about how the West provokes Russia.
Okay.
And Poland has to pay for the base.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's
the 2 billion, I think, is just the base. You don't. There's other things that you have to pay costs that you have to pay for. So, what do you think of this?
I mean, let's make sure that we recognise that NATO backs this move.
Right.
And it's not as many as the Polish government was actually asking for.
Right.
And I think, you know, the EU is steadily building up more reserves, but we're not there yet in terms of being able to help and assist. And it's quite clear what happened in Crimea, that we need to have some sort of deterrent here. So it is a minuscule amount that the US is putting there. But I agree with Andrzej that actually the Polish people would want something different. They are concerned about having a big military base.
So is that why Trump stopped short of having more troops and having an actual base, because there is the provocation of Russia?
Well, also it would be in contravention of what was described as a political agreement, not a treaty.
97, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, indeed, which was signed between the two countries, suggesting that you couldn't have permanent bases in places like Poland. I mean, from the Trump position and kind of the Polish government position, this is kind of a slam dunk that works for both of them. Clearly, they get NATO troops, American troops on the soil to head off the perceived threat from Russia. For Donald Trump, it means that he can appeal to some European leaders who actually quite like him as President of the United States. There aren't many of them, so he appeals to them on the side. Interesting that Prime Minister Duda has been there
still shopping for allies
twice in less than a year, which I think is pretty extraordinary for a Polish premier. And in addition to that, of course, Donald Trump also gets to give Germany a slap in the face, which he has made it clear he doesn't like Germany's position, not least of all on NATO spending. And in respect, of course, Angela Merkel has made it also clear that she's not a big fan of Donald Trump. So for all sorts of reasons, this is
like
almost an inevitable story.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about just a quick question on the buying of planes? Because this is also like a power play. Does it risk offending EU partners when Poland is getting funding?
I think no, because it's first of all, it's a question of how to assist to the military economy of the United States. And the winner is the United States. And
so
secondly,
it's okay. You don't see any problem.
I don't see problem in general, but looking at the whole situation, this is, I'm repeating, this is a story of provocation. Russia.
Okay. Go ahead, Nina.
No, I would say that I think over time there will be perhaps concerns by the EU, because the EU does want to be kind of not dependent on US anymore. So there will be concerns that will be coming down the line, but I don't hear at the moment that there are huge concerns.
We're still drawn by the fact that, as much as there's an aspiration for an EU army and that Europe should be able to sort out its own political and military kind of situations, we are so far from that situation, and NATO is still, for most European nations, the kind of bulwark to Russia.
It seems there's a lot of
Russian aggression is an additional point. Putin is not a stupid guy who will start military campaign against NATO.
Okay, well, there's a lot of power playing in geopolitics, because from Poland, let's go south to Turkey. And President Erdogan, whose latest defense purchase has set him on a collision course with President Trump. Let's take a look. A fiery row ignites at the heart of the NATO alliance, and it's all over this piece of kit. The S-400 missile defense system produced by Russia, but bought by NATO partner Turkey.
Türkiye S-400 savunma sistemlerini bakınız alacaktır demiyorum, almıştır.
A long-threatened deal which has angered the United States, Washington threatening to kick Turkey out of the US-led F-35 fighter jet program, and issuing warnings about Ankara's future in NATO.
Does it want to remain a critical partner, the most successful military alliance in the history of the world, or does it want to risk the security of that partnership?
As Turkey's relations with Europe and the US turn sour, Recep Tayyip Erdogan is increasingly looking east to Russia. All eyes are now on whether Donald Trump will respond by showing some muscle when the two leaders meet next month. As I said, another power play. So how do you think Trump can respond to this? Play hardball?
Well, I'm sure he will, but I think for the EU it's quite concerning. I mean, clearly when accession talks were frozen, there was going to be implications of that, and this is clearly it. And we've poured millions and millions of euros in supporting Turkey, and now Turkey turns towards Russia,
Something else
which
to
is
think
a
about
real
for
problem.
you. Okay,
what Trump
area.
is doing now, he says to Turkey, not go to this supermarket for the same goods, go to that.
Okay. We have a lot more coming up on the program. Political makeover. Marine Le Pen, she rebrands the European Parliament's far-right alliance. Plus, lights, camera, photobomb. Our very own political editor is the star of today's Raw Moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Now, European nationalists forced to be reckoned with. After months of fiery speeches from the likes of Italy's Matteo Salvini, as well as France's Marine Le Pen, a new right-wing alliance is finally born. Complete with a fancy new name, it's called Identity and Democracy. Well, kicking things off here in Brussels with an official press conference, the new group is a revamp and rebrand of the previous Parliament's far-right grouping, the Europe of Nations and Freedoms, made up of the likes of France's National Rally, Italy's La Liga, Germany's AfD, and Austria's Freedom Party, but with double the MEPs this time around, not counting, though, Nigel Farage's Brexit Party, who has so far declined to join. And here is what Marine Le Pen had to say at the announcement earlier.
Ce groupe est d'ores et déjà la première force souverainiste du Parlement européen. Comme les frères et sœurs ont évidemment des points communs, mais sont différents, l'ancien groupe ENL et ce nouveau groupe ID ont des membres communs, mais en réalité sont différents. L'aspect fondamental de cette nouvelle mandature, ça ne vous a pas échappé, est le bouleversement de l'échiquier politique en Europe, dont la nouvelle composition du Parlement européen n'est qu'un élément.
And they are not the only ones having a political makeover. Europe's liberals, now in an alliance with Emmanuel Macron's party, have also unveiled Renew Europe, that's the name, bringing together the former alliance of Liberals and Democrats party, France's La République En Marche party, and benefiting from a boost from the UK Lib Dems, Liberal Democrats. Now, group leader Guy Verhofstadt, he took the announcement to Twitter, saying, "Our new group is stronger than ever and has the unique chance to shape Europe. There is a lot of work ahead of us. Our mission is to renew Europe. We are inspired to build a free and fair Europe." Okay, joining me now to discuss this, we have Gerolf Annemans. He's a Belgian MEP from Vlaams Belang, which will be part of the new Identity and Democracy Alliance. We also have Barbara Gibson, a new British Liberal Democrat MEP-elect, who will be part of Renew Europe, and communications expert and strategist Dennis Abbott from BCW Global. Okay, I'll start with you, Gerolf. Identity and democracy. This sounds almost like a rallying cry. It's a slogan, a rallying cry for the supporters of your parties. What's in the name? Why?
Well, first of all, it says what we are. We are focused on the identity, cultural identity of the several member states in Europe. We want a European cooperation starting from member states and from cultural identity. And we want more democracy in Europe. The European Union was constructed and goes on in a direction of more competences for the European Union. And we don't think it was is what the people want.
But you didn't manage, the group didn't manage to get Nigel Farage's Brexit party. Is that a blow?
No, we never said he would join us, but our door is open for him if he changes his mind.
All right, and I'll ask the same question to the Liberals, because Renew Europe, again, a slogan. So what is this about? What is the point and the message of these names that sound like slogans?
I think the name itself, the words, are less important than the identity of the group. And it is still the liberal group within the European Parliament.
Right.
We stand for liberal values and liberal policies. So the word and how it translates...
Is it cosmetic, then?
I think largely the word you choose is cosmetic. And in this case, we're not selling a product. It's the product itself that matters. And so it is the Liberal group. It is now the third largest group within the European Parliament. And that's what's important, because it's a force to be reckoned with.
And I think one of the reasons for dropping the word liberal, because it doesn't go down well in France. I think the word liberal has a connotation of, as you know, some would say this is ultra-capitalism. So Dennis, you're the expert in messaging and PR. Why are parties doing this? And is it needed right now?
I think it is needed. I think, first of all, people are used to businesses rebranding, changing their names, showing they've got a new, fresh, modern approach. And I disagree with Barbara. I actually think these political groups are selling a product. They are selling themselves. And they really did. They were in need of catchier, simpler, slogan-like names. I have to say, with Barbara, I think the names are important. Renew Europe does send me to sleep a little bit. It does. I was talking to your producer, Grace, earlier, and it sounds a bit like, you're going to renew your gym membership, renew your library card.
Oh, no, we're starting to get feedback now on the names.
You've got to pay something, so that's terrible. But I actually think, no fan of Vlaams Belang, but you've got a great name. It really does say what you are, and it's a lot more elegant than the sign that Vlaams Belang has in its offices in Belgium, which say Saskia or Sharia.
But why is it needed? But why is it needed?
Yeah.
Why the need? Why the need for this? Are we saying that this is what people respond to? I mean, are we no longer talking about policies? We're just talking about names and images and
well, first
identity?
of all, ENF was not a good name, if you allow me to say so.
It's like on an energy company.
We got away with it, and it was now the time we enlarged many other parties, other member states. So we had this was the moment to change for a better name that says more about what we are. ENF was a letter word, and a letter word is old-fashioned.
But what about from the point of view of voters and electors? Why is that what we're trying to say, that they respond to this rather than ENF or policies?
I think the name of the parties within the European Parliament, almost all of the current names are just acronyms. So nobody, as a newbie coming in, you come in and say, what does that stand for? And no one knows. I think with ID, it will still be known as ID. I think probably Renew Europe will be known as Renew. And so that will at least send a message, whether it has the connotations that he said or not.
You don't agree?
Well, Renew, we'll see what... everything that I heard from Verhofstadt and Macron during the campaign was about staying in the same business, going further on the European path, and the centralization of Europe. So we'll see what comes up when they are really renewing. I'm not criticizing their name. I'm just saying ID can refer to an ID card, which is the essence of no illegal immigration in Europe, etc., etc.
Was that part of was that part
independence, which is a part of our identity also.
Was that part of it? Was it part of ID? Was it part of the consideration there you're talking about?
I'm just saying it gives possibilities in every direction.
In the interpretation, okay. And you will be playing a big role, the third largest party in the European Parliament,
and the Lib Dems, the second largest delegation within Renew. So we will be playing a part as Lib Dems within that third largest group within the parliament.
And the fact that Emmanuel Macron and his party, they're coming here with a lot of pomp, a lot of publicity. How is that going to affect the dynamic in the group? And even the choice of word, as we said, they had to drop liberals to please the French. I mean, that's what I've heard. So how does the dynamic work now in the party?
I think that remains to be seen, but right now it looks like we all working towards the same kind of policies, the same kind of values, and we'll work together as a liberal group within the European Parliament.
Janice, are you expecting to see anything different with this new parliament, these rebrandings, this grouping, or even?
I think there will be a lot that's different, you know, because there is more fragmentation in the parliament now, that the groups will be more focused, I think, on issues than the old alliances. And I think one of the things that's very clever about these new brands is that they give those parties space to develop their messages, because a rebranding is all about a new message. Right. But with a new message, you have to have the space to expand and develop your message. And because what was the old day group is now, as you say, dominated by Macron's En Marche, there's going to have to be some flexibility to tell slightly different stories in different territories. And I'm guessing, Barbara, you will still be talking about the Liberals back home in... Is it Oklahoma or Welling? I'm not sure. But you will be still telling, you'll be using that word liberals. It's not a dirty word.
A lot to watch out for. Lots of new things happening in Parliament, lots of new names that we have to keep track of now. OK, coming up on Raw Politics, Prime Minister Boris Johnson. MEPs here in Brussels dish their thoughts on that prospect as voting in the UK's Tory leadership race begins.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a measure of the resilience of this country that since the vote to leave the EU, and in defiance of all predictions, the economy has grown much faster than the rest of Europe.
Well, that was the UK frontrunner for Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who finally launched his leadership campaign to succeed Theresa May yesterday. And he's one of the 10 hopefuls who this afternoon faced the first round of voting and came out on top in a contest due to last until the end of July. Well, with us from London to tell us more is our correspondent, Vincent McAviney. So, Vincent, so we saw the vote today. Tell us what came out of that.
Good evening, Tessa. That's right, the first round of the voting, and the big headline, of course, Boris Johnson winning by a huge margin. He got 114 votes out of a possible 313. Back in second place, Jeremy Hunt, the current Foreign Secretary. He had 43 votes. And then in third place, Michael Gove with 37. So those are the top three contenders. We then now have a second category. So this is people who got through today's vote but don't have enough to get through the next round on the 18th. They need 33 votes to progress. And that is Dominic Raab, Sajid Javid, Matt Hancock and Rory Stewart. They're all in the 20s and high teens. And then we lost three candidates in the running. So both of the women who were in contention, Andrea Leadsom and Esther McVeigh, who ran a particularly dreadful campaign and came last. And also Mark Harper, he is out now. So there are just 7 candidates left. We might see over the coming days a few of those dropping out if they don't feel that they're getting enough support, because they'll want to curry favour whoever they think is going to be the winner in this race. But at the moment, it is really now Boris Johnson's to lose.
Is there a general feeling that Boris Johnson is just going to go through this without much challenge, really?
Well, there is, but many people are pointing out that really the biggest enemy for Boris Johnson in this competition is Boris Johnson. He has a habit of making gaffes, some of which he can normally laugh off, but he does at times get punished because of mistakes that he has made. His record as the Mayor of London is also under some heavy scrutiny, as well as his personal life, which, it has to be said, is a bit of a mess. He's going through a divorce at the moment and has a new partner as well. And when it comes to the strategy, it has been with Boris and his team, keep him in a bunker. Let's not have him doing press interviews. Let's not have him doing broadcast interviews. He waited yesterday until he was the penultimate slot in the campaign launches. And even for Boris, it was a bit of a dry speech. Here's what he had to say.
It's only by preparing and raising awareness of what no deal might entail that we will ensure that we do not resort to that option. It's only if we have the guts and the courage to get ready for it that we will carry any conviction in Brussels and get the deal we need. Because they don't want no deal any more than I do. And we will simply not get a result if we give the impression that we want to go on kicking the can down the road with yet more delay. Delay means defeat. Delay means Corbyn. Kick the can again, and we kick the bucket.
So the message there for Brussels and his fellow MPs who are going to be voting on him is that he is putting no deal back on the table. And for the 170 or so Tory members around the country who will eventually vote next month on this leadership race, he is saying that you need to back me in order to block a Corbyn government. Jeremy Corbyn, someone who is a good campaigner. But it is going to be a tight race because already today, Rory Stewart, who did come bottom, he got 19 votes, so he just scraped through, but is doing quite a good job in the campaigning. He has warned that Boris Johnson is threatening, for instance, to block Parliament from being able to have a vote when it comes to no deal in future, about sealing the doors of Parliament, something he said would be very much against democracy here in the UK.
All right, thank you for that, correspondent Vincent McAviney there. And joining us to talk about this, we have our Brussels correspondent Maeve McBahan, and back with us, our political editor Darren McGaffrey, and still with us, Barbara Gibson, a British Liberal Democrat MEP-elect. OK, I'll ask you first, Barbara, are you ready for Prime Minister Boris Johnson?
I am not. Boris is in no way fit to be Prime Minister. He's proven that again and again, and his own people are hiding him away. So clearly he is not fit to be the next Prime Minister. But he's not the only one of the current Tory hopefuls who are hell-bent on Brexit. They have stopped listening to the British people. And I think that's why the Liberal Democrats are surging. And when he says, you know, it's either us or Jeremy Corbyn, he's wrong.
But who would you like to see at the helm then?
Well, they are surging, but you did finish second behind the Brexit party, who want to leave with no deal. So,
but then who would you like to see at the helm?
I really don't have a preference because they're all hell-bent on delivering Brexit, and the Lib Dems are
good point you made there, Darren. And in terms of Boris,
I think just the most extraordinary thing about Boris Johnson is 6 months ago we would have said that it's very unlikely he would have got through the MP stage. He's very popular with the membership. He's quite popular with the general public. But lots of Tory MPs don't actually quite like him very much because of the history, let's say, he has. But what has changed in the last 6 months and what's significant is, I think, the realisation of the Conservative Party, having looked at some of the elections where they finished particularly badly in local and European elections, that they see this twin threat now from the left of Jeremy Corbyn, from the right, the Brexit Party and Nigel Farage. And I think they have just assumed that the only person who can take on both of those and take back voters from those is probably Boris Johnson. And so a lot of them will kind of hold their nose and vote for a man they may well not have done 6 months ago, but the politics has changed that quickly.
Definitely. And what's interesting, I mean, we know that here in Brussels, many people here know that Boris Johnson used to be a Brussels correspondent for The Telegraph, in fact. And you actually spoke to MEPs today, or you went around Brussels asking what they think of a Prime Minister?
I did indeed. And certainly everyone knew who Boris Johnson was, regardless of what country they came from. He's a well-known character. Depends, of course, which MEPs you spoke to, what kind of political hat they wear, but we can take a listen now to what they have to say.
Well, I like the guy, but I'm not a Brit, so I should not decide who the British Prime Minister should be.
It's a horrible idea that Johnson is the Prime Minister of UK, because he is a gambler and he is a liar.
Well, I share many of his basic positions on many issues. He is a very colorful personality and I think he's a very entertaining personality.
Il porte un courant d'idées, une position qui est une position démocratique qui a été choisie, retenue par le peuple britannique lors du référendum de 2016, et cette volonté doit être respectée.
At least we could hope that we have a Brexiteer at the steering wheel, which was not the case up till now.
But he is quite efficient in the performance to bully. And maybe he learned something from Trump.
I feel very sorry for the UK citizens.
Oh, well, there you go. But what kind of reception do you think he's going to be getting here?
The red carpet will not be rolled out for Boris Johnson, we know that for sure. I mean, it'll be difficult conversations, and of course, because Martin Selmayr, a man who we know, the Secretary-General of the European Commission, we know how he feels about Boris Johnson. He dislikes him, and I don't think those talks will go very well if Boris Johnson...
Well, we should just find out. He hasn't won yet.
Not yet, not yet.
Still 6 weeks to go.
Exactly.
And you know what? There was one fact in all of this, that the favourite has never won. the Conservative leadership race.
That's
so
interesting. Okay,
hold your horses.
Hold your horses there. Okay, well, from Boris Johnson to Donald Trump, and just to know, we're not drawing any comparisons there. The U.S. president, he was asked last night about whether he would listen to dirt on political rivals from foreign governments in an exclusive interview with ABC News' George Stephanopoulos. Let's take a look.
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI if I thought there was something wrong. But when somebody comes up with Oppo research, right? They come up with Oppo research. Oh, let's call the FBI. The FBI doesn't have enough agents to take care of it. But you go and talk honestly to congressmen. They all do it. They always have. And that's the way it is. It's called Oppo research.
So it's called research. What do you think, Barbara?
I think, actually, this ties so much to the last conversation. He is very much just a reality TV star using us as his extras, and so would Boris Johnson. I think the ethics of Donald Trump are clearly not what you would expect of a U.S. president.
Sonny, you're straddling both worlds here.
I actually don't think it's that outrageous. I don't think it's that outrageous.
You would listen if you had that.
Well, yeah,
I mean, it's interesting.
But the United States and other countries rely on intelligence from other countries all the time.
Right.
So I'm not entirely sure it's that outrageous.
All right. Okay. We have a lot more coming up, and we want to hear from you on this topic. Are you ready for Prime Minister Boris Johnson, what we were talking about earlier? And your call is coming up at 7 p.m. after the show. So the contact information is on your screen. You can call us for free at 00800 3333 7002. And you can join the debate on social media. Use the hashtag #WarPolitics. And our lines are opening soon after the break.
I think they're saving lives, but I think if they bring them to Europe rather than return them to where they came from, for example, Libya.
The way Salvini and other governments are behaving is totally against European values.
It's only populism which Salvini is trying. It will not change the situation anyway, and it just makes the work for the rescuers harder as it is anyway.
Italy has taken most of the burden, so has Greece, so has Spain. It is time for northern countries to actually do their share.
If you're a Christian, you would want to help people in that situation.
So those were some highlights from last night's really lively show. Now, your call is coming up again tonight at 7 p.m. Brussels time. We want to hear from you. So as usual, we ask 3 topics, and this is what we're talking about tonight.
I think things are going extremely well.
Boris Johnson's had a colourful career.
Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London, with the Olympics.
As Mayor of London, he flew the flag for the city in the 2012 Olympic Games and faced some of the worst riots in London's history. Loved by Brexiteers, Johnson spearheaded the referendum campaign, but was accused of lying and misleading the public on the consequences of Brexit.
Let's stop Downing Street, Boris.
Now, as Tories begin their leadership contest, Johnson's leading in the race to be Britain's next Prime Minister. Are you ready for Prime Minister Boris Johnson? Putting on a show, Polish President Andrzej Duda stepped into the White House yesterday. On the agenda, defense. Donald Trump vowing to send 1,000 U.S. troops to bolster Poland's defense and keep Russia in check.
I think that Russia will treat Poland with respect, just like the rest of the world is treating. Poland has really built up a great country. You know, they get hurt, unfortunately, too often, right? Too often.
A handshake to seal the deal. Some are saying it could provoke Russia, but what do you think? Should there be U.S. troops in Poland? And escalation in the Gulf of Oman, where 2 oil tankers have reportedly been hit in suspected attacks. It comes a month after 4 tankers were attacked off the United Arab Emirates. And amid rising tensions between Iran and the United States, President Trump dispatching an aircraft carrier strike group to the region earlier this year. With European powers caught in the middle and urging caution, we're asking, are you worried about war with Iran? Come on, Europe, have your say. Are you ready for Prime Minister Boris Johnson? Should there be US troops in Poland? And are you worried about war with Iran? All right, you can call us for free at 00800 3333 7002. Write to us at rawpoll@euronews.com. On social media, use the hashtag #RawPolitics, and you can also look for us on Skype and turn on that video. We want to see you. And co-hosting with me tonight is Maeve McBain, our Brussels correspondent. And still with us, Darren McCaffrey, and joining us again, Dennis Abbott from PCW Global. Okay, let's talk about the Boris Johnson question. Dennis, you haven't answered this question. Are you ready for Prime Minister Boris Johnson?
Not really.
Not really.
Not really.
Is anyone?
I was always brought up to tell the truth, so we're not similar in that respect. But where I think he'll be a terrific negotiator. If he becomes,
think so?
Yeah, I do, because the other side will never know if he's bluffing.
And you think as a communicator, do you think he's going to pull back and be more diplomatic, or just carry on with the stamp of Boris?
It's not in his nature.
No.
I mean, he's a fantastic speaker, a fantastic writer, a great communicator, not a details man. So, but I think he will surround himself with details.
That's where he
men
might
and
trip
women.
up, because Brussels is all about the details,
It is,
especially the European Commission.
But I think, like everyone here, he will have people dealing with the detail for him, and he will be fantastic for people like Euronews because of his wonderful sound bites. But can you believe what he says? Big question mark.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I think as in, like, you can portray it as that, or you could say he's pragmatic and quite malleable, and that actually might be expedient for whether you're Brexiteer or indeed Remainer. Because when you look at it, he was Mayor of London, a Labour-supporting city, for 8 years. I think most people, I certainly lived there, he was a very popular mayor, particularly during the London Olympics. Then he was a kind of much more kind of Trumpish foreign secretary. And you know, was he really a proper Brexiteer? I mean, he wrote 2 letters arguing, one to leave and one to remain. And I think Boris, essentially, like lots of politicians, has got an ego and will do what he thinks is best for his political career. And you know what? That might mean actually changing his mind on Brexit.
So interesting. Oh, that's so interesting. So Maeve and I will be hosting tonight, so we want you to call in and join us in that conversation. So the phone number, again, let me repeat it. It's 00800 3333 7002. Email at rawpoll@euronews.com. And on social media, use the hashtag #RawPolitics. We're always checking and waiting for you, and you can look for us on Skype. Okay, now it's time for tonight's Raw Moment, which features our very own Darren McCaffrey. Darren, I'm so excited to see this, who appeared oblivious to some unwanted attention while reporting on the twists and turns of the Tory leadership debate in London yesterday. Let's take a look.
Really, actually, it was very typically Boris, wasn't it, Belle? Lots of showmanship, lots of talk about an optimistic future, and also on his former term as Mayor of London, something that we will hear quite a lot over the coming weeks, I think, Belle, and that will be announced on July 22nd. OK, cool, no worries, no worries. So the whole newsroom loved it. Right, OK. I was obviously knew they were there. I didn't know they were literally under the umbrella with me, though the weather in London yesterday was horrific.
Yeah, but it does happen, though.
They followed us around because there are always these protesters in London, on both sides, it should be said, not just Brexiteers. And wherever we went, they were there. So they're pretty relentless. They are pretty relentless. I'll give them that.
To get under your umbrella, that's amazing. That does happen. It's an effective way to get a message across.
Well, it does.
Right.
And also
I would
people
have been
do
tempted to turn to them, though, and kind of...
Well, people have got the right to protest, but you do kind of think, can you just leave me alone, please?
All right. Well,
please.
Thank you for watching us. And we want to hear your views. So join us after the program for your call. Don't forget, use the hashtag #RawPolitics. Thanks for watching.